Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Box Office Talk. This is the show where I break down what happened at the box office, see if my predictions for the top 5 are correct, then make predictions for next week's top 5. So let's get right on into it. Last week I predicted that number 1 would be Wicked for Good, number 2 would be Now You See Me, Now You Don't, number 3 would be The Running Man, number 4 would be Sisu, Road to Revenge, and number 5 would be Predator, Badlands. And yeah, after number 1 and number 2, my predictions kind of got haywire. Only one person got their predictions right for this week, and congratulations. Everybody else was also kind of across the board here. So I think the common thing, though, is that nobody thought for a second that it wasn't going to be Wicked as number 1, which was obvious. Everything was pretty low, and Wicked did incredibly well last year. It was obviously going to continue to do well this time, but I think a lot of people were wondering, like, okay, is it going to do, like, as good, even better, or is it going to maybe like fall a little bit short of where it was before? Like, what are things looking like here as far as, this success this time around, right? And man, I do have a list of accomplishments to read off here for Wicked for Good. So let's just dive into it right now. It opened to domestically $150 million, which matches its alleged initial production budget of $150 million as well. Obviously, there's the factors of like how much was put into like post-production or marketing and blah, 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 blah. At least for right now, this is still a fantastic opening to like match the production budget, right? And then worldwide it is sitting at $226 million right now. Now, of course, this is obviously way higher than what the first movie did. Domestically, there's about a $38 million difference. And then worldwide, I believe last year, the first movie opened to $164 million. So this one opening to 226, much better, much stronger start even. And the first movie already had a great run, as you already know, obviously. Going back to the domestic side of things, we have a whole list of accomplishments, as I mentioned here. So let's just blaze right through these because it is quite a lot. This is the highest domestic opening for a stage adaptation ever, domestically and worldwide. The previous one, you guessed it, was Wicked, so it just falls into that as well. It is the third highest opening weekend ever for a musical, 11 million over Moana 2 and 20 million over Frozen 2's opening weekends, but just 24 million shy of Beauty and the Beast 2017 and 41 million shy of Lion King 2019. But still, like, top 3 is pretty fantastic, right? Like, the first Wicked isn't even like where Moana 2 or Frozen 2 are at, right? And then it's also the second biggest opening weekend for 2025, 12 million just below Minecraft, which is still the champ, but 4 million over Lilo and Stitch. That's pretty good, you know what I mean? This is also for Universal, the second biggest opening weekend ever for them, right behind Jurassic World's 208 million debut back in 2015, and also just ahead of Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom's debut in $148 million back in 2018. So as far as like swinging out of the gate, with just the opening numbers, fantastic. So right now we're going to jump into like the stage adaptation list that I have here, just comparing like whatever domestic runs, where they ended up at. And I think it's gonna top it pretty soon, and then we might switch over to like the more just broad like musical films to compare. But for domestically, this list, it is 47 million over Dreamgirls, 22 million over Into the Woods, 6 million over Mamma Mia, and 1 million over Les Miserables. It's 14 million shy of The Sound of Music, unadjusted for inflation, but that does place it as number 5. The 5th highest grossing domestic run so far, and it's not even done. And then for worldwide, it is 73 million over Sweeney Todd and Phantom of the Opera, 71 million over Dreamgirls, and 14 million over Into the Woods. Needs 61 million until The Sound of Music, but that places it as the 7th highest grossing stage adaptation worldwide. Not top 5 automatically, but top 10. And like I said, probably going to clear a lot of these very soon. Just another fantastic opening. Like, there's some obvious ones that I decided not to write down, like, oh, it's the highest opening weekend for, Cynthia Erivo, Ariana Grande, and Jonathan Bailey, and John. It's like, those are, I feel like, I know I just said it right now, so kind of pointless to even bring it up, but it feels pretty obvious. This stuff is like more interesting to me as far as like the more like specific categories of like how it compares to the other adaptations, or even for like the distributor as a whole. Like, yeah, this was a really great win for Universal this weekend, a really great win for just this whole team. I do hope, being the musical theater enjoyer fan that I am, I hope that, the success of these Wicked movies encourages, potential other adaptations, or at the very least, if it's not like a stage adaptation, because maybe not everything, needs that kind of treatment, but at the very least, just more of a gamble on like musical films with like really talented singers in the forefront, something like that. Obviously, it's going to be incredibly interesting next weekend because we'll talk about that for the predictions. But in a broader sense, we have Thanksgiving coming up again. It's the same kind of release timing as the first Wicked as well. Wicked came out like a week before Thanksgiving, and then the following weekend, it had that whole like kind of like school's out. Some people aren't working on like that Wednesday or Thursday to like Sunday kind of Thanksgiving period. School's out. Take the whole family. You got Wicked and a potential, other competitor, and it's the same kind of setup for this year. So I just feel like Wicked's just going to continue to do really well. We're going to see like similar booms, I think. We'll talk a bit more about that in the predictions for next week. But yeah, really exciting stuff here. Really exciting debut for them, obviously. Can't wait to see where this goes. Number 2 is Now You See Me, Now You Don't, which might not pan out because it had a really strong opening last weekend in the grand scheme of things. And I think I'll stick to what I said as far as like worldwide, we'll probably save it in the end. But domestically, it's probably not gonna, it's probably going to continue to like not too amazing. Okay, let's just say it made 9.1 million this weekend, which adds to a domestic total of 36 million. So that is 29 million shy of the second film at this point. Still, obviously, potential to outgross that. I just don't see the roadmap for it having like such a great holdover and staying power that it like domestically has like the best numbers they've ever seen. You know what I mean? Like outgrossing the first film either. It's like, no, I think worldwide is what's really going to save this, because right now it is sitting at 146 million. That places it 182 million away from the second movie, but closer to their doubling point of that initial production budget of 90 million. So I feel like it may not even end up being the highest grossing Now You See Me film. Obviously, I think that was pretty evident just based off of the opening weekend was not as strong as the other two. But worldwide it will probably be like a moderate kind of hit in the long run. So it's also just serving as just another option, an alternate option to the two big popular movies that are going to be out next weekend. So yeah, what do you know? I was surprised to see at number 3 Predator Badlands sneaking back up. If you remember, I predicted that to be number 5, but here it is at number 3. I'm not gonna act like it's like a great like kind of hold or anything. It made 6.2 this weekend, adding to a domestic total of 76 million, and then worldwide it's sitting at 159 million. So we are still about 51 million shy of that doubling point of the initial production budget of $105 million. I think it has enough momentum to potentially cross over that point. I don't think it's going to continue to like really like leg out and have like a significant enough boom. But we also talked about recently how like, the last 2 Predator films were on streaming and people really talked up those movies, but for streaming, right? And people watched it through streaming. So it's shifting back to theaters, I'm sure, has kind of plagued people's kind of like assumption about like consuming that media. You know what I mean? Like they might be assuming like, oh, it's on Hulu. Well, it's not on Hulu yet. Oh, it'll be on Hulu soon. Something like that, right? So I think all things considered with that, this is not too terrible. And the fact that it's only 4 million shy now domestically of outgrossing the previous highest grossing Predator film, which was AVP, I think that's pretty good. And the fact that it already outgrossed the other like solo Predator films is great. And then worldwide it has outsqueaked the Predator by just a couple 100,000, and it's 13 million shy of AVP there. So yeah, and then it'll be the highest grossing Predator film once it reaches that goal point there. So yeah, it's shaping up to be like the highest grossing entry in the franchise, and it's been a couple years since the last theatrical entry, and the last theatrical entry was kind of deemed as like, potential financial disappointment and critical disappointment, absolutely. But this one, won over a lot of fans, won over a lot of critics. Like majority of the word of mouth is that it's positive and it's garnered enough of a solid audience. I'm hoping they take another gamble on a theatrical release soon with this. It may not be having like the most tremendous legs that maybe I was hoping for when it debuted, but also, yeah, it's going up against all these other like onslaughts, you know what I mean? Like the following weekend, even though The Running Man, didn't do that well, which we'll talk about in a second, but Now You See Me did decently worldwide, and then you get Wicked, and then it's the movie we'll talk about for next weekend in a bit, and December is just going to be even more at a certain point. So yeah, not too terrible, all things considered. Number 4 is The Running Man, though, making 5.8 million, adding to a domestic total of 27 million. For Edgar Wright, it did outgross Hot Fuzz here by 4 million and The World's End by 1 million, but it's 6 million shy of Scott Pilgrim. And then worldwide, I was kind of hoping like potentially for a bigger boost, because when we talked about it last week and it didn't seem like the right number, but Apparently it was. It is now sitting at $48 million. I'm sure this is still incredibly disappointing for everybody involved. It did outgross Shaun of the Dead by 19 million and The World's End by 1 million once again, and it's 1 million shy of Scott Pilgrim, and then at that point it'll be Edgar Wright's third highest grossing film ever in worldwide, at least. But yeah, I really was kind of hoping for like maybe a bit more of like a word of mouth, but maybe it is just that thing of like, The Running Man, nobody has given a shit about that movie in many, or at least like a mainstream kind of audience hasn't given a shit about that movie in many years. Maybe the marketing wasn't as like, out there as I thought it was, because I could have sworn like they were pretty much going all out as far as like, getting this promoted, but maybe not, or maybe just, people just weren't that interested in it. I thought the trailers were fun and, promise something energetic and fun, but maybe that's not it. And I know that critically there was a bit of like kind of like a more mixed reaction to it. I thought it was perfectly fun, but some people did not feel that way. Maybe that kind of swayed some people, especially with Now You Three Me, which I don't quite get since I hated that movie a little bit more, but whatever. It's a different conversation, right? Yeah, I was really hoping for a better outcome with this movie, and it's just kind of looking like now that it's in its second weekend and it's not really bumping up like I would want it to, and it wasn't able to like sustain a lead over Predator. Yeah, not the greatest. Number 5 is Rental Family, which I didn't predict last week, and I didn't think it really had a chance, honestly, but I guess the numbers were just low enough, and some people's interest in Brendan Fraser was just high enough to squeak in. I'm not sure what the budget of this movie is, but it did open to $3.3 million. I'm assuming it isn't too expensive, maybe like at most maybe like a $10 million budget, but honestly I'm no expert as far as that goes. I can't like watch a movie and have like this sixth sense of like I know exactly what this costs, right? I don't have that. I'm just assuming based off of the film that I saw, right? But for a movie that's potentially aiming to be maybe a bit more of like an awards hopeful or something like that, I don't think this is too bad of a debut at all. Especially, like I said, I didn't think it would crack the top 5, but since it did here, this could also potentially be like one of those that could linger a bit. It could also be one of those movies that like some people say like, oh, that's gonna be an awards favorite, but then doesn't really, maybe it gets one nomination in something but doesn't crack anything else. That could just be its fate also. Number 6 is Sisu, Road to Revenge, which I did predict for the top 5, didn't get there, but I was kind of correct with what I said last weekend as far as like I thought it would not do significantly better than the first movie. I was kind of expecting about the same, and it opened to 2.6 million, which is a little under a million than what the first movie opened with. And in the overall domestic run, it needs 5 million until it outgrosses it. Worldwide, it is sitting at 5.9 million, and it needs 6 million until it outgrosses the first movie in that regard. But I just feel like opening this low, you know what I mean? Like, it's technically lower than the first movie, you know what I mean? Like, even if it's just by a little bit, it's technically a little lower. And when I saw it, it was in a really small theater. I just really feel like there's just not been that great marketing push with this. I don't really know if like a Sisu fandom really like exploded like 2 years ago. I was surprised when they announced that this movie was coming. I was like, really? Okay, it must have done well somewhere, but yet to be seen, because it seems like some people might not even know this movie exists, right? And on a budget of 12.2, that's not great. I noticed that they kind of swapped distributors. Lionsgate, I believe, did the first movie, and when I was surprised when the logos started, and it was Sony, it was Screen Gems, something like that. So yeah, I was a little surprised by that, but yeah. Just a surprise, but I don't even recall the first movie doing like amazing, so I don't know. Maybe we'll see Sisu 3 at some point. Maybe they'll hop distributors again, I don't know. Number 7 is Regretting You, making 1.5 million, adding to a domestic total of 47 million, so that places it 101 million away from It Ends With Us. Worldwide, it is at 86 million, which places it 263 million away from It Ends With Us. So 4 million shy, though, of tripling their 30 million initial production budget, which we've talked about they probably care a bit more about. So a very like moderate kind of hit for like a more lower budgeted kind of drama film right here. Maybe Colleen Hoover won't be embarrassed to say she wrote this one when people ask her what she does, right? Instead of saying It Ends With Us, she can just say Regretting You. This is a reference to like an interview she did where she said she was almost embarrassed to say that she's written it after, the legal cases going on with Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, and it's kind of like Okay, dude. Whatever, man. Let's move on to number 8, which was Nuremberg, making 1.1 million, adding to a domestic total of 10.9. Still can't tell you what the budget of this thing is, but it's still here. Lasting a little bit longer than I kind of expected. So I don't know, maybe this will snag a nomination at the Oscars. It seems like a small enough people might have seen it where some people might be like, hey, you know which screenplay was really snazzy and like an Aaron Sorkin light kind of way? God, can you picture it? Aaron Sorkin writing fucking Nuremberg? Perfect. Anyways, number 9 is Black Phone 2, making 1.0 million, adding to a domestic total of 76 million. That places it 14 million away from the original film, and then worldwide it is at 130 million, which places it 31 million away from the original film. I'm not sure if it will stick around in the top 10 next weekend, just because there's one big movie, and I don't know what other smaller ones could potentially be lurking about. I know at least one that could, but also, yeah, you don't know what's going to hold over, what other special event so if this is its last time, even if it didn't outgross the original film, that's totally fine because it fucking quadrupled its 30 million initial production budget, did pretty well, even though I thought it was a mediocre movie, but yeah, it did way better than I thought it could have after I saw it, and I think people's just it seemed like maybe lack of excitement. There are some people that were like, oh, what a sick direction when the trailers got started, but it almost kind of felt like some people were like, really, we're doing this again? It turns out it worked out for him. And we're more than Mithrigan, right? And then finally closing out the video, number 10, I can't believe this. It's Sarah's Oil. Zachary Levi is clinging for dear life. See me, he screams out into the abyss. And we're dropping him here with 771,000, adding to a total of 10.3. So that is 0.6 shy of Nuremberg. And that's all I have to add here. It never crossed over its initial production budget of 18 million. There's no other worldwide totals to add on to it. Flop. Nothing but the best for Zachary Levi. Anyways, now it's time for the fun part, the predictions for next week's top 5. Number 1, I think I do have to go with Zootopia 2, because even though Wicked is obviously doing incredibly well this weekend, and Zootopia did really well, but it didn't open as huge as what Wicked did right now. I'm looking back at last year, and Zootopia, it's been, 9 years since that film. And I'm thinking about Moana also from last year. Moana was 2016 to 2024. That was the journey to getting that second movie out, right? And that movie opened huge, even in competition with the first Wicked, right? I'm expecting the same kind of thing. I think Zootopia 2 is going to have an even bigger opening than the first movies. It's going to open really big. And then number 2 will be Wicked for Good with barely a drop-off. That's kind of my predict. Not that I'll discount a shout out if you didn't predict it had a small drop off or anything like that. I'm just saying the first movie, if I'm remembering correctly, it maybe had a 30-20% drop off from week 1 to weekend 2. I think it's going to have a repeat kind of effect here, a repeat Thanksgiving kind of thing. Number 3, I think will be Now You See Me, Now You Don't. Number 4, Predator, Badlands. And number 5, The Running Man. But what are your predictions for next week's top 5? Leave them in the comments below. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.